Yeah, maybe shortly I've taken this again up, and it's part of what I'm trying to research or to think about in philosophy of mathematics, where I'm interested in what I call the living part of mathematics, in contrast to the dead written one. So the human factor there, and values is one big issue in this context. And let me just
Q or G?
Q.
Sorry. Well, okay. I'll try this top-down approach, because the idea of values we haven't really discussed where they're coming from. So there are three more or less issues which hold communities together. Is a common values, common practices, and out of these common habits, which are mutual to the members of, and by this I mean communities of humans. I mean, don't mean computer networks. Would be interesting to think about this as well. And in the realm of values, one should distinguish between values which are more on the non-verbal or not clearly formulated platform. Then there are norms which are clearly formulated, and then there is things like preferences. And preferences are to some extent on the individual level stronger than values, and of course there are the practices, the specific practices there. So we should distinguish. Norms can be also set together with rules, so this is written down, this is a kind of codex, and values are not so much written down in this area. So I will be interested, and of course, if you take these values versus preferences, of course you have this high virtue when the preferences or the actual practices coincide with the values. So we have these very few examples like Socrates, Jesus, and so on, where the words correspond to the doings. Yeah? Okay, but from the other hand side, so how does the dynamics of values or value systems, how they are sometimes called, take place? So on one hand side, values have to be conserved. Yes, so in order to be able to speak of this value system. And of course they are applied, so everything that we call value judgments is the application of values. And of course values are also subject to change. Yeah? And this was known to the old Greeks, yeah, who spoke of these three rhetorical genres called the epidictic, which is the conservation part here, the juridical, which is the application part here, and the political, which is the change part here. And it would be interesting, and this is my point in this top-down part of the talk, how can we relate this to mathematics? Yeah? Let's say a little bit more about this. So, in order to make value judgments, you need an established system of values. Otherwise, you cannot do this. So, it presupposes the values. So, this would be interesting in relating this to Collingwood's absolute presuppositions, in order that we are socialized into a community, and of course some of these are already in there and we don't even think about this, but these form these absolute presuppositions. It would be interesting thing to explore what these absolute presuppositions are in the realm of mathematics, and he sized down the idea of metaphysics to these absolute presuppositions. So this and it can be put in this issue of values. We have no other chance of doing judgments except by using values. Yes. In order to start from somewhere, these values have to be incorporated. They have to be somehow acquired, and this is not only an explicit process. Yeah? Okay, the change is normally either a change in the hierarchy of values, some things that were more important become less important and vice versa. And of course it can be also the introduction of new and the abandonment of old values, which has also been taking place in the history of mathematics and takes place in this very moment. So, in this very moment, somewhere these things happen. Yeah? That's important to know. So this is a process that takes place. Of course, every conserved, every time of having the systems needs in order to be compared to the other time needs to change, and vice versa. So these are more or less conservation and change are complementary notions. Okay. And conservation is to preserve or the increase of the adherence to already accepted and indisputed values. So this is, normally the Greeks say this is the funeral speech, or the speech in honor of the hero or something. It doesn't tell us nothing new, yeah? But it has an extremely important important use in order that it makes the value system stronger. Yeah? It turns the community together. Yeah? And this is something which is those two, maybe this is more, so mostly we associate mathematics with value judgment, so everything that really happens, yeah? But I think that this is a lot neglected, so I think that the epidictic genre in mathematics plays a very crucial role, and it is still a matter of research. So let's say a little bit about this. So the conservation, so it's if we have this kind of abstract view on this, so it is appraisal of a successful application of value, the value system. Yeah? So it is an action that depends on another action. Yeah? So something has happened and it's successful, and we say, great, this was successful, yeah? And give him a prize or a position or something like this. Yeah? So this is what happens there, because this is no more value judgment. So this is clear. I mean, I'll go back. Yeah? So this is something that, okay, we can say we can with this or without this. So the strong Platonists would say, okay, you can go without naming of theorems. Yeah, Pick's theorem we had. Just, okay, this is a kind of appreciation of Pick's work. Maybe he didn't work on this theorem, like Hilbert spaces. Hilbert didn't work on Hilbert spaces. Exactly, but we appreciate this guy, so somehow this is a kind of an act of appreciation. We could go without these prizes and so on. I mean, we couldn't probably go without appointments, but let's keep this open. Yeah? And the other two issues are things what I call education and, I mean, we call education or initiation into a community. Yeah? And of course, these need two sides. So the ones who are being educated, and the other side is the educators, or the ones who do this ritual of initiation, or however this looks like, PhD, so whatever. Yeah? And the difference in this realm of conservation is that education and initiation is done by people who are commissioned by the community to do so. So they are not subject of discussion if this is okay or not. So they are just they're not selling. They are imparting these values which are accepted. They are not a matter of discussion. Yeah? This is the difference between education and propaganda. Propaganda is in the other realm of the politics, yeah? Of the change of values. Yeah? That's a big distinction in rhetoric, which I think plays here a much more central role than the dialectics, which is probably just, if at all, in the value judgments. Okay, so this is something like a main top-down idea. So what is the idea of values, and what role do they play, and how is this dynamics of values taking place? And in the next part I'll come to this bottom-up thing, and then I'll try to combine it somehow, because it's not very clear, so most things happen in the middle between this. So it's this distinction, like every kind of systematization, is idealistic, and if you look at practice. So The bottom-up thing is that we say, okay, there's good and bad mathematics if we speak of values. So this is the same thing. It's high valued and low valued. Yeah? I'll mention this, but Philip Davis spoke about high-pro and low-pro mathematics. Something like this, yeah. And something that I consider important are good and bad mathematicians. Yeah. And this is something that is less discussed. But in order to speak about this, we presuppose that the answer to what is mathematics and who is a mathematician is relatively clear, which is not so clear, but I'm not going to discuss this. Yeah? But in order to speak of good or bad mathematics, you should, or we should have a common understanding of what mathematics is, which probably we have, and about who is a mathematician. And just, it's not really a joke, but there are many different definitions or trials to explain mathematics. I personally am fond of many of them, but in this context I like Markov's definition, who says that, definition in mathematics is that which Gauss, Chebyshev, Lyapunov, Steklov and I study. Yeah? Yeah? And it's quite okay, because it is a very community-based approach. Yeah? So either you belong to us, then you're a mathematician, or you don't belong to us, then you're not a mathematician. And what is mathematics? This is what we do. Yeah? That's it. Yeah? Come here, I will show you, and then when you start doing it, then it's mathematics. Yeah? Okay, so this is a non-Platonic approach. This is clear, but it's okay. And I have a kind of authority backing my point. So let's turn to mathematics. There has been in recent times a couple of things have been written on this. So, and many things were said already here in this conference about good or bad mathematics. So what are the factors, or what are the specific values that, if they are there, then we consider it good or bad. So Bill Thurston has written this famous On Proof and Progress in Mathematics, but even more interesting is his introduction to his three-dimensional geometry and topology book, where he states sort of a kind of program how to write it in a right method, which is very near to some extent to Grassmann's introduction of his 1844 book. So Grassmann states it's more clearly to combine this mathematical and philosophical approach, which means rigor plus overview, and Thurston states it in other words, but more or less it's the same. Yeah? On my opinion, yeah? But this is not a part where I want to dwell in. Yeah? There is this rough structure and classification by Gowers, who explicitly speaks there about good proofs and good definitions. So this is a topic there. But his aim, Gowers' aim, is that he wants to find out how to make them formalizable and then put it into computers and so on. But interestingly enough, he's so thorough in his thoughts that this is not so much the case when you read the text. I mean, he wants this, but he puts arguments that are far beyond this. Yeah? There is a very nice video lecture by Jean-Pierre Serre about bad mathematics. And it's called How to Write Mathematics Badly. I'm not really sure if this is 2003, but when I read, because in the video itself it's not written, and I tried out to find it in Harvard. And it's very nice because he doesn't just speak about how to write mathematics badly, but he speaks really about what bad mathematics be in certain examples. So he doesn't try to make a whole system. Yeah. But this is a kind of testimony by an eminent mathematician. And of course, this was already mentioned, Terence Tau's short paper on what is good mathematics, where he lists around 22 or something like these issues in the beginning. And of course, there's this response by Alain Kohn, who is not so happy because actually the real process, so the part of the mathematician, is omitted there, yeah, which is important for Kohn, or as equally important or even more important. Yeah? How do you create this state of mind, yeah, in which you are able to produce mathematics, yeah, or which you'll be able to work effectively? Yeah? This is Kohn's consideration, yeah? Which is somehow Okay, and of course this present conference, I mean, they are in a good company. Yeah? Here and so here, many things. As I wanted to show a list. I have it in one of my last slides, but I'm ready to omit it because there were much more interesting lists given here of specific issues, specific values for good or bad mathematics. Yeah. Much more interesting is what we can say about mathematicians. Yeah, there is. I didn't come across an explicit treatment, but to my knowledge, maybe there is something, but I'm not aware of it. Yeah. I would be happy if you can tell me so. Yeah. There is a cyclic argument that a good mathematician is a mathematician who produces good mathematics, so we reduce it to good mathematics. And of course this leads immediately to the value of productivity, so productivity is something important. Yeah? And then, of course, now I'm making a sidestep, but I think it's interesting and an important sidestep, because inside of this productivity issue, which is the main idea of good mathematicians, productive. Yeah? There's the issue of originality versus reproduction and reinvention, which, in my opinion, has important arguments then for mathematics education, because in mathematics education, or even in undergraduate or even graduate areas, we don't reach this originality. Yeah? We have reproduction or reinvention, and this is not valued very high, and that's why I think in the community of research mathematicians, this math education thing is low pro, yeah? in the words of Davis. Yeah? Okay. And the other aspect is another one. This is skilled or tacit knowledge. So not only the ability to produce good mathematics, but also the ability to understand, to transfer this understanding. So we spoke in the break, the ability to read mathematics. Is one other aspect which we cannot track by published papers. So this is something else which makes mathematicians, or a mathematician, a good mathematician. And the question is only the productive mathematician a good mathematician? So when you stop producing, what happens to you? Yeah? And so on. I'll come back to this again. There is this mathematics versus mathematician, so we come now to some so it becomes less and less structured, I have to tell you. But it was not so easy for me to make more structures. So we have this issue of relevance, importance, novelty, progress, which I already mentioned, and this is some central point in, for example, Hardy's arguments. Yeah, this importance of deepness. Yeah? Mathematics is important. Yeah? Okay. Low-pro, high-pro I already mentioned. The programs and versus problems were also mentioned. And I want, because it was this boundary issues were mentioned by Henrik, so it is the topology of, I think called topology of the community, like there is one issue, so one set of issues are inside the community relevant, another set of issues outside, so in the communication with non-mathematicians, and on the boundary. We had this famous issue about the boundary where Grassmann, who was not inside of the community, was not put inside, yeah, forward. Yeah? He produced something that later on turned out to be extremely important, and is considered now an important mathematician, one of the most important of the 19th century. But at that time, it was not okay for the community. So that's also a value. So if you want to stick to if you want to be a member, you have to stick to certain to norms. In this case, it was not so much values, and Grassmann had different opinions. There is this reputation prizes, which I mentioned. So this is in between, yeah? And another issue is the unity of mathematics issue. Yeah, this is something like which it is considered as a value, but its question is if it stands scrutiny. Yeah, if it's really so united. Yeah, but there are a lot of issues. Now there is, I think the modern thing is that they want to foster so-called intradisciplinary research. Yeah? So that there will be grants for research that puts together different fields, and people think that this will, people like Tao or so think that this will foster this unity of mathematics because this is so important. So not just to discover by chance or individual thing, but to have really research programs for this interdisciplinarity. Yeah? And there is the issue of time, which concerns us as well. This is the publish or perish issue, with this thing that you have to publish, I don't know, in order to, for the AMS thing is you have to publish 2 papers every 4 years at least to be considered a mathematician or something like this. I mean, there are such normative restrictions which are very strange, and so you know that Wiles didn't publish 2 small things in these 7 years in which he worked on this. The question is it possible for a grad student, for example, to afford this, yeah? To take time working on the Riemann hypothesis? Yeah? It will not be okay. Yes? And the other thing here with the time is not just this, to take your time, but this makes another time problem, that you need the time to read all these things. So who is reading all these things? Yeah? Is this publishing only an issue of getting credits, or is it an issue of communication? Do you publish? Do you write for the referees, or do you write for your colleagues? And now we have this discussion with all these Elsevier problems and so on. These are value problems, of course. Yeah? And the issue is, okay, the communication goes through the archive, yeah, and the publication is only in order to get credits, yeah, and so on. But the Polymath project has big problems with this credit issue, because you put some idea there in the blog, and then some other guys use it, and you hope that they will recognize your contribution, and they are much quicker probably in this. So and this is a big, and this is an issue. It's a value issue, because you cannot. It's a living thing. So how do you do this with time? Yeah? And I have to say, we are going to publish, or there will be a volume published about the conference. Who is going to read this? What is the aim of publishing this volume? Is it a credit aim? Is it the aim of communicating this to someone? Are there many people out of this circle who are going to read this? Yeah? And this is a question which we should ask ourselves, and I myself am asking myself this question, and I am not sure if I'm going to take part in the publishing out of this very, very value-related questions. And you have also these research papers versus expository book. It's a different in hierarchy. Yeah? Okay, these are valued higher. Research papers are valued higher than expository book, and some of the writings of Thurston, for example, yeah, go in the other direction. That there should be a kind of change, yeah? Because say you are in your primes. When you're in your primes, you should write the research papers, and then when you're past your primes, you can write expository book. But when you're past your primes, you will write low-level expository books. And then if you are in your high primes, yeah? And so that's it's a question. Yeah? The other thing is evaluation. Who is doing the evaluation? I mentioned it already, because some people from the community do this. So they are referees of journals, they are commissions for academic appointments, prize commission, personal recommendations. Historically, they are descendants, students, history in general. Yeah? They are kind of exams or competition which are least significant. And then the question is, who judges the judges? Yeah? So it is relatively easy self-reference that can be made. Yeah? So who evaluates the evaluators? So are these the editors? But then you can do the same. So it's a kind of self-reference, and it leads in another context to the issue of trust. So the community sends these people, maybe not explicitly, and trusts that they will evaluate in a proper manner, because otherwise I have to double check, and somebody has to double check myself, and so on and so on. So the issue of trust arises naturally out of this self-reference. And it is a value as well. I trust you in order to. It is the same. It's another kind of trust than in this polymath project, where I trust you that you have done your work in here, and I'm not going to double check. Or it's maybe the same. I don't know. But trust seems to play a role which is not very nice for all the formalists. People who have trust should be eliminated. Reliability should be assured by algorithms. We cannot assure this here. Okay, and I want to put a couple of diverse issues. I have to look at a couple of minutes. So, in the same way as we ask about good proof, good definition, we had already something. You can ask about good conjecture and about a good review. And about the reviews, we have no ideas. There is no. I came across one article which deals with reviews. But this is some hidden. So the hidden parts of mathematics are quite interesting in this aspect. So it's are there good and bad reviews? Or are they always good because we trust them and so on? So this is a kind of open question. Okay, sorry I forgot to erase this. How do we value written text versus skills and understanding? Now written texts are valued much higher. If you have somebody who has the skills and good in understanding but hasn't written the text, is not inside or at the edge, or somewhere not in the middle. There are bad papers being published. Why? I mean, bad papers, they're correct. So the correctness is okay. So all of mathematics is correct, but not all of it is important to say this. And there is saying that different. I had made an interview at Gowers where I said that one professor of mine who is not so famous said that around 90% of mathematics, on his opinion, shouldn't be published. That what has been published. And Gowers told me that this is even a low percentage, on his opinion. And no idea. There is different level of value of journals. How does it? This is not intrinsically clear. How do you get so the annals of mathematics? And there are some others, which are not so high. And this is not really discussed, and this is an issue of values, and it is mathematically relevant. I would say. And the whole issue of bad mathematics, it's kind of dark. What happens? I mean, there are some published bad papers, but they are the rejected papers. And I think this is a kind of dark matter. There's a lot of rejected papers, and not all of them are rewritten in order to be published. So it's kind of something that's not available to historians, for example. But I think it's more than the published. Because I have no idea about the percentage of acceptance, but it is lower than 50%, I would suppose. So you have more unpublished papers than published ones, and we have no idea what is written there. It might be interesting. Things are changing now through the archive, so in the archive everything is published, which makes it easier. Another thing is the issue of mistakes, good and bad mistakes. And there's a lot of written about this. So Shimura says about Taniyama, he was able to do very good mistakes, and I'm not so good. So Shimura says he's not so good in making good mistakes as Taniyama, which we should take seriously. So because he speaks, I mean, you Japanese, you never know. Always sounds serious, but it was really serious, I think. And there is, I came across a text where it said that it's not really a true citation about Hardy, or Littlewood said about Ramanujan that he would like to have made his mistakes. So there was some paper that doubted that it's correct citation. But anyhow, it's a kind of folklore. There's the issue of good problems and tasks, achievable versus important, which is a very practical issue of PhD students, for example, or of researchers. What should I tackle? Should I go with the Riemann hypothesis and take the risk of never getting somewhere? Or should I take something, so how do I learn this? What is a good problem for me? It's not discussed. And it was somehow raised implicitly, this issue of mathematical schools, so the communities actually are called